Agenda item 4.2, we have our Economic Development Officer, Silvio Gislimberti, to provide some information regarding the Industrial Park and Direct Heat Use Workshop for information purposes. Silvio.
Before I start, may I pass around just one information sheet?
Yes.
Which one, please?
It's too bad Peter can't hear us.
Yes, it is.
I'm just wondering, on our
Thank you for receiving me tonight. I have two messages that I want to pass on to Mayor and Council. The first one, I would like to inform you a little bit about the Geothermal Industrial Park workshop that was held in Valemount last February 12th and 13th. I gave this sheet here, and this sheet contains the survey results that were done by Kangia at the workshop. First thing, participation has been excellent. We had a total of 82 people, as you can see, and local participants and residents were kind of 46 people. These are just some facts. The next one are the results of the survey. So how many people did respond? We had a potential 77 because I did not include the presenters. So we had a potential of 77 people responding the surveys, and you can see we received 34 surveys back, respondents. It represented 44.2% of response. Now, in an academic situation, this would be low because, as you can see, I say the average paper-based response is sometimes around 50-55%. But since we were not in an academic type of environment, this was an excellent response rate. So very good response rate. Then, as you can see, from the people who responded, we had a 67% Valemount residents. And the next question, probably is the most important one, where Kangia asked, how would you rank the different applications of direct heat use? The results are a little bit skewed because not everybody responded in a sequential way, giving a priority from 1 to 8 or 9. Some people just picked 1 or 2 items. Some made a whole list. So that's why I'm saying it's a little bit skewed. However, as you can see, greenhouses, number 1. Everybody probably can understand the importance of having direct heat used to produce heat for a greenhouse. If you turn page, probably it's important to see people really like the presentations. The low or horrible would be 1, fantastic 5. If you make an average, we came to a number 4.5. It corresponds to a 90% of success rate, so it's very good. The media presentation, I think that's something that Kangia really wanted to know. Is that important for them to use YouTube when they make those presentations? And individually, I heard some people did not really like it, but on average, you can see 80%, that's good. And then, of course, also, would people recommend that to other communities to have a similar presentation or a similar workshop? Very successful. You see some of the comments. Comments were very positive, and I think also from my perspective, from an organizing perspective, it has been very successful. And again, also in public, I say we really have to thank SIBAC for providing the major part of funding, the Valemount Community Forest, Columbia Basin Trust, and then of course the village has put in a lot of in-kind time and also a lot of materials. So that's one thing. I don't know if you've got any questions about this survey, if there's anything. If not, I'll go to the next point. The next point is in a certain way also tied into the results of the survey, because we see that many also locals kind of support the concept of direct heat use. And what I would like to ask council is to consider dedicating some of staff time. In this specific case, it would be mostly my time, but also it could be also sometimes somebody else in office that is helping, to try to find some ways to create an organization, either to form a local working committee, a committee, or a society that will deal with, again, geothermal direct heat usage in Valemount and in the area. So that's the purpose. I want, for my presentation here, I want to give you some reasons why this is really important. From a geological and geothermal perspective, we know we are in a very good area. I have always to point out, all the ones who have been at the geothermal workshop, of course you heard those enthusiastic presentations from Bernie Carl or also from Tony Boyd, but their situation, the geological and geothermal situation, is quite different, because they can find the heat source by only drilling 300 meters. That's not our case. Our case, we still need to go probably somewhere around 1 kilometer, 1.5 kilometer to find a good source. However, what is very promising is that if we drilled, let's say also only 1 kilometer, we still would find guaranteed 40 degrees of heat, 104 degrees Fahrenheit. I just want to make sure I translate that for some of you. So that means with 40 degrees Celsius, for instance, if you use it for greenhouse and vegetables, peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers, lettuce, and those kind of things, the maximum temperature that you would need at nighttime is around 21 degrees Celsius. So in our case, just by drilling 1 kilometer, we would find that heat, and we know that we could find 40 degrees, it's almost guaranteed, and we only need 21 degrees for greenhouses. That would be the maximum temperature at nighttime. Daytime, they use different types, but also we're talking about 22, 23 degrees Celsius. Flowers, as an example, for instance, maximum night temperature that you would need is 22 degrees. In Fahrenheit, 72. When we talk about the 40 degree kind of as a minimum guaranteed, I just want to give another perspective. Radium hot springs, the hot springs temperature there is 47 degrees, okay? So in our case, without hitting the real heat source, because it could be there, but just by going down 1 kilometer, we would almost have the same temperature as radium hot springs, 116 Fahrenheit, so that we get that concept a little bit. And just to let you know how they classify hot springs, they classify hot springs, everything that's below 80 degrees down to 32 degrees, they're called hot springs. Between 32 degrees and 20 degrees Celsius, they're called warm springs. And they even have cool springs, so that means it's not cold water, but it's probably 10, 12, 15 degrees or something like that. So in our case, if we hit 40 degrees, that is already classified as a real hot spring. And in fact, it's too hot to use it for a baby, for instance, right? 40 degrees, it's much too hot. Another great reason why we should be looking into direct heat use in our areas, of course, that the community forest owns the industrial land site. So that is also so important, because that would facilitate all the process and the procedure to doing that kind of type of work without having to go on Crown land. As soon as we talk about Crown land, it could be more difficult and challenging. Another great aspect why now is, for instance, the Columbia Basin Trust declared the renewable and alternative energy as a priority in the new management plan. And when they talk about the strategic priorities for the next 5 years, 2016 to 2020. So that means also from Columbia Basin Trust, we can get information, support, and of course also we may be looking also for funding if we plan to go ahead in this direction. Another important reason is that also some local businesses here have expressed interest and the most important thing, commitment. And we know that happened at the last council meeting when Randy Anderson and Christine Pelletier gave a presentation to council. And in that presentation, they said also they are even willing to participate, of course, in small ways, but also financially to show that commitment that also local businesses would like to proceed us in that direction. Let me conclude with some of the benefits. If we could find, and I say only the 40 degrees, if we find more, that would be great, but if we could hit a 40-degree heat source, we would have a real competitive advantages. Of course, for local businesses and also for attracting other businesses. Let's not forget that more than 50% of any type of energy cost goes into heat. Right? So if we could, the village and the Valemount Community Forest, if they of course also they could really promote a real new product to attract also businesses for potential relocations. Why? Because the savings that we could offer would be probably somewhere between 30 and 40% of their energy costs. So that's why we would have something real to offer, something real to promote when we want to promote Valemount and try to attract other type of businesses. Of course, the big thing is always that some of these benefits would be job creation, population increase. We know how important it is. We have lost almost 20% if we compare the census from 1996 and 2011. And so if we could, again, attract to the area another 100 people would make probably a big difference. We have also what they call the soft benefits. Think of, again, marketing, branding, right? Branding that whatever we grow here is done in a different way, new way. And all this, what we call normally or sometimes the promotion of the Valemount experience, right? And of course, last but not least is the direct heat use is an efficient, renewable energy source. It emits no solid waste, no CO2s. It emits virtually no potential water pollutants and so on. So these are really the great things about this kind of type of energy. Last thing that I would like to say is I would like council really to consider to dedicate some of my time for this potential project to investigate some options to maybe form an organization, a local organization, to form a local committee or society that will deal with this here. Then if the next step would be to apply for funding to implement a geothermal strategy that can include different things. It can be the direct heat use plus also probably the hot springs. And the goal would be really to create a geothermal, what they call a geothermal industrial park at the Valemount Community Forest site. And I know that a lot of people also have, and we always had the dream of the hot springs, probably to create something like a natural rock hot springs site as proposed by also Mr. Sato when he gave the presentation at the workshop. So thank you, and I hope you will consider my request. And we'll see what happens in the next, I hope, years, if not years, months.
Well, let's say weeks.
Weeks, okay, that's even better.
Okay, thank you, Silvio. Councillors, do you have any questions or comments to make to Silvio at this time? Councillor Torgerson.
Thank you, Mr. Gislenberti, for your presentation. From the survey, it's obvious public support for the geothermal concept. Do you feel that there are that same public support for participation on a local working group, be it a committee or society?
Yeah, I think, and in fact, as a testimony, as we can say it also, we have many people who are here tonight, and many of these people have been at the workshop, so they had a chance to get that kind of first introduction to the geothermal direct heat use. And I also have seen through all the emails that I have received after the conference and also the response in a survey where a lot of people will say, this is a great idea, let's see what we can do. And of course, there are also some really questions. Is it doable? Can it be done? And that's probably what we really need to investigate. But I think we would really have some strong local participation. And again, you were here at also the last council meeting, and you also heard direct commitment from two local business owners. Right.
Councillor Levichette or Salt, do you have anything? Okay. I should just like to bring to council's attention that on August the 11th, 2015, Resolution 31715 was to establish an Economic Development Committee. And that was referred at some point to our interim CAO, however, nothing has materialized as yet. I should like to suggest to council, with your consideration and approval, that council meets with Mr. Gislamberti and our CAO and our corporate secretary and come up with some terms of reference and an application process. And we'll get this going as soon as we can. And for your information, now, I really don't know why. You know, Columbia Basin Trust, I'm on the investment committee, but they also, the new chair appointed me to the agricultural committee. And I thought, I don't know anything about agriculture, but I think it might fit in with one of the presenters and proponents that was there. There's always a reason, isn't there? Okay, so we can arrange that. Please, councillors, give times when you are not available for a meeting within the next before the end of the week, perhaps, and we'll get this rolling. Okay? Do you have anything? You're okay too?
It's just an observation.
Yes, okay.
And it's kind of gnawing at me. I want to share it. I'm curious about funding sources. And I'm a little out of date. Things have advanced, but I was taught or read or learned about carbon trading. And there's environmental standards that a lot of the industrial players have to meet, and there's been a market emerged whereby sometimes some of them fail to be able to cut back quickly enough, and they actually kind of buy carbon credits. And you have a project like this that comes around that's environmentally friendly, and it's producing positive credits. And a source of funding is for these industries that are challenged environmentally. They provide investment capital, and they earn credits to saying, well, you're not directly producing environmental, but through your investment, you're supporting an offset, and they're forgiven for their sins. So that's where this market's emerged. I don't know the status of where that market's at, but it's potentially a source of funding, and I just kind of want to put it on the radar.
Okay, well, yes, Councillor Salt.
I'd just also like a comment too, to just remind everyone that exploring geothermal was also a council strategic priority that this council adopted. So it is definitely one of our priorities that's still on the books and on the list. So it's not that we're not going to support and try to figure out ways to work. And I like your suggestion that maybe incorporating it in with the Economic Development Committee.
Right. Yeah. So I think as soon as we can meet, we'll get things moving. Okay, instead of delaying it like this has been delayed. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Yes?
Hello, I'm Rundy Anderson, 1288 Avenue. I want to thank Mayor and Council for what appears to be support for Silvio's presentation, and I like that you mentioned weeks as opposed to months or years.
Yes.
At the last council meeting, Councillor Blanchett asked Christine and I to consider a committee for geothermal, interest in geothermal. And we called interested people on Sunday evening, and we had a turnout of about a dozen on short notice, and I believe a number here. So we have people that are willing to actively be involved and do some legwork as well.
Okay. Thank you. Yes?
Hi, my name's Dave Craig. I did attend the geothermal meetings and everything. It was very well presented. It kind of raised a lot of hype. I was at the CBT meeting last night. I noticed that there was an excessive amount of money that was not spent or given out. The hot springs have been a hot topic for many years. Myself, I've been wanting to do something there for a long time. I'm just wondering if council can somehow fund some money somewhere to do a little bit more down there. We were down there again today. We're getting temperatures excess of 50 degrees Celsius in the water. I do believe Andrew has started a committee, and I was just wondering if there's some way that council, with the excess money, they could do something towards a drill program or anything, just to get it off the ground, because it'd be a great asset to our community. The BC Hydro destroyed it, so it'd be nice to see something come back.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, go ahead. Mr. Fox and then this gentleman here.
Thank you. I would also like to commend council. Oh, I'm sorry. Peter Fox, 1195 Third Avenue, Valemount. Though I didn't attend the seminar given at the Best Western, I may as well be a lightning rod after I commend you for a fine presentation, which I've watched on VCTV and will no doubt watch over and over again, because there's so much information to be absorbed. But thank you for council setting staff time, money aside for moving ahead with geothermal in Valemount. And here's where the lightning rod bit comes in. I've looked at the responses from the surveys, as in how the geothermal direct use applications might head. The new CAO mentioned the possibility of carbon credit funding in lieu to help further this. But looking at the responses here, you know, greenhouses, horticulture ranks only 1.6. That's a moneymaker. So are tree nurseries, moneymaker. The snow melting, we'd have to put new infrastructure under the sidewalks here. Costs a lot of money. We'd have to get that from somewhere. I think that when you go into your consultations, you need to concentrate on the things that will bring the most economic benefit to Valemount. Aquaculture, fish farming. There is a fish farm down in Clearwater, so far as I know, not that far away. And it doesn't hire, it doesn't involve too many employees. So when you go into your consultations, greenhouses, horticulture is fine. Pair up with a food drying, which is rated 4.6. We would have to get food somewhere if we're going to dehydrate it. So please think in those terms, in that direction, and don't necessarily go ahead on projects based on the ranking here from the feedback. I'm waiting for lightning to strike, but thank you.
Yes.
Joe Moore from Teton, and I do support Silvio's committee for studying this, but having said study, I don't think we should be studying it for 7 years, because 7 years ago somebody was 13 years old in the school, now they're 20 years old, they could be moved out of this town again. So, and we need to attract people here rather than to chase them away. And you certainly need something like this to go forward, to bring this community together and to bring some, some added wealth to the community. I think it's a great, great opportunity, and I don't think you'll have any problem with supporting the town. Thank you.
Andrew McCracken, 1080 Fifth Avenue. I'd just like to speak to the geothermal file as well. I was privileged to be with David Craig and about 20 people. We made a trip down to the hot springs just for sort of interest and discovery. And we knew we wouldn't be bathing in the hot springs, that was a known, but people came there to do some work and to find out what could be done to move the file forward. I really support the plan as proposed in the economic development context that you brought up, Your Worship. I think that's could be a great thing. I think it's a great direction. So I just wanted to vocalize my support.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh.
Elvis Domain, 545 Jack Adams Road. I think it's wonderful that council's considering this geothermal thing and helping to push it. We want our children to come home. We want jobs. We want them back in the community, and that's one way to do it. You know, and if you can get our children back, you know, we'll be so happy.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to make a comment at this time? Did I see Mr. McGuire getting up, or?
Sure.
Well, I thought I saw you moving and I didn't want.
Like an auction, eh?
Okay.
I saw that.
Yes.
John McGuire, 1215 9th Avenue. I'd like to add my voice to support Dave's suggestion to use some of the money that's left over to help develop hot springs down the lake, as well as some towards this drilling program we're talking about.
Good. Thank you. Okay. Well, just for, I'm probably not supposed to comment, but I'm going to anyway. There was a study done on those hot springs in 1994 by Pitto Associates, and I'm sure that Mr. Gislenberry has it in his files somewhere.
Also online.
Online.
.ca.
Okay.
There's documents and publications everybody can find.
That's right, that's right. And there was a Mr. Patrick McBride that had water license there. I don't know if that has expired.
Yes.
It has expired, okay. Well, we will get to work on this very, very quickly, and like I said, I don't like things to go on for years. Okay. Thank you for, I'll take a motion, please, to receive the public comments, Blanchette and Torgerson.